guys, and welcome to Word of the Day Wednesdays. I am Nicole D. Miller, author of Stories for the Urban Soul, a compilation of short stories, novellas, and some poetry depicting Black characters dealing with everyday life issues, from social injustices to heartbreak to college life to friends and family, all that good stuff. And you can find out more at NicoleDMiller.com. So get ready. I'm going to be having a really good friend on my Word of the Day Wednesdays this evening. J Immanuel. He is a podcaster. He does a lot of things. He has a new business venture. So definitely tune in. He's being featured on the latest Word of the Day Wednesdays because he was on my blog this past week. As you guys know, I've been doing a series interviewing other entrepreneurs. So Life as an Entrepreneur, How I Got Started. Make sure to check that out, betterthanwine.net. So Jay, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and share with my audience who you are, what you do, and why you were featured on this month's series of Life as an Entrepreneur, How I Got Started.
What's going on, everybody? My name is J Immanuel. I'm the host of the Right to Real Love radio show, as well as the host of the Why We Succeed podcast. And I'm super excited to be on here today to talk about my journey as an entrepreneur, a first-time business owner. I'm new in these streets, and I'm definitely looking forward to sharing some of the lessons that I've learned along my journey thus far.
Yay! And we're excited to have you. So one of the first questions we discussed on my blog is, how did you get started? How did you start out being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so for me, it did not come from myself. It was other people. I just looked at myself as just doing a little bit of work that I like doing. I like doing voice work. I like doing podcast, video editing, and audio editing. And I just looked at it as something that I was doing that was earning me a little bit of money on the side. I didn't look at it as a traditional or official business until some people that are in my circle began to say, like, yo, you need to start a business. Like, you're generating a significant amount of income from this work. It's not just a side hustle. That's a business. You need to treat it like one. So that's really what was the catalyst for me becoming, I guess, officially a quote unquote entrepreneur or business owner. And I'm still navigating these streets. You know, it's fairly new for me, but I am grateful to have changed my outlook when it comes to the approach that I take towards the work I'm doing now.
Yeah, and I really resonate with that. When you said it came from other people, I feel like sometimes we need other people to pull on those gifts that are inside of us. Like there is a need in the earth for what's deposited in us. And sometimes we're oblivious because we just take it for granted. It's like drinking water. Like it's so easy for us, but other people see it and they're like, man, you're making this look easy. Like you have something that other people need. So I definitely resonate with that. And the next question I'll ask you is, what support groups do you have in place for your entrepreneurship journey?
So for me, the biggest support that I have along my journey is definitely my accountability partner. Shout out to Calvin. Me and him have been accountability partners, I think almost going on 5 years now. I've had other accountability partners over the years. Once I saw the value in having people to keep me or hold me accountable along my journey. So I definitely ascribe a lot of my success and, more importantly, my progress to having Calvin in my corner. Me and him, we meet once a month. We started more frequently at the beginning of us being accountability partners, but we got to a place where now we typically just touch base once a month, kind of go through what our goals were, the things that we set, whether or not we were able to meet them, and we pour into each other's lives and just kind of help each other along the way. So that's definitely been huge for me, is having Calvin and, you know, other entrepreneurs that I know that are on this journey too. I may not talk to them as frequently as I talk to Calvin, but anytime I talk to my other fellow entrepreneurs and business owners, they drop gems on me, whether it's sharing a book or a resource or sharing something that I may not have even considered looking at prior to having that conversation with them.
And it sounds like you have an all-in-one relationship with Calvin. Like he's able to help you in various areas of your life. And that sounds like a gold mine.
Most definitely. Yes. It's definitely not just business. It may have started out that way to a certain extent, but we touch on not just what we want to accomplish. From my perspective of being a business owner, or his profession as being an executive coach, you know, that's not the only thing we talk about. We talk about our personal lives, our spiritual development. So yeah, it's definitely valuable.
That's awesome. I'm glad you have that, Jay. So the next question would be, what has helped you navigate through tough times or challenges in the entrepreneur path? What's kept you going?
I would definitely say my relationship with God. I would be lying if I said that wasn't probably the paramount thing. Because when I get to those tough places, those forks in the roads, or those walls that I've run into, I definitely have to rely on my relationship with God to help me to navigate, figure out what the next step is going to be. And I think aside from that, from a practical perspective, if we, veer off the spiritual path for a second, is the plan. I have to trust the plans that I set for myself with regards to the things that I'm trying to accomplish, especially when it comes to business. So for me, my relationship with God, and then the plans that I'm setting.
I love that. And thank you for your authenticity. I know a lot of us have a similar experience where this entrepreneurship journey is a faith journey. I mean, it's so similar to it that I'm going to be 100% honest. When I knew God wanted me to be an entrepreneur, I was like, no, because I'll be a faith walk. I don't want another faith walk. Like I didn't.
Yo, that's real. That's real. Trust me, I know what it's like to leap and with no parachute. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
definitely have been there, done that, and it's a different experience. And I definitely wouldn't advise doing that too often in life.
Yeah, you got to hear from the source. You got to know the one that can catch you if you fall. Otherwise, I'm
Right.
not leaping.
That's real.
All right. So another question I asked you was, what lessons have you learned? So what do you think you could help other people by sharing? Like, what could you share to help other people with the lessons you've learned?
That's interesting. I would say for me, I think the lessons have varied, really depending on the season that I'm in my life. I think one of the most important things is just knowing what direction I'm going in and why. And that's really important. So I would say, hmm, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think of very specific lessons that I've learned. I would think recently it's been about prioritizing, right? Because I'm managing content creation plus managing the things that I have to do with business. And having read The One Thing by Gary Keller and being somebody that structures my life based on priorities, it's challenging to know in the back of my mind that I should just be focusing on one thing so that I can do it to the greatest extent to be the most effective that I possibly could in that one thing. But when I have multiple desires, multiple projects, if you want to kind of look at it from the business perspective, when you have multiple things that you're working on, sometimes you have to split your time. So for me, the lesson that I'm learning is how to properly prioritize, how to manage those things. And once again, it's about developing a plan. That's what I had to do. I get to the point sometimes, and it happened recently, where I was becoming overwhelmed by all of the things that I knew I needed to do and the things that I wanted to do. But I needed to structure out how I'm going to do this in an effective way. What are the steps? What am I going to do first? And that's where prioritizing comes in, being able to order what I need to do. And that's the main lesson that I've taken away is prioritizing and just having a plan of action.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As you know, I'm also a multi-business owner. And so you and I kind of discussed this before. I find myself scaling back with marketing and growth with my bookkeeping business because this writing thing is just really taking off. And I feel like I have to be sensitive to Holy Spirit, like, okay, what was the purpose of this business? It may not be what I thought, and being sensitive to that because I need to be authentic. I need to be in tune with what's going on with the writing. So
Most definitely. Yes.
definitely
It's a
priorities.
balancing act.
It
Sometimes it
is.
can be a balancing act.
And then switching your hats, like I was doing bookkeeping this morning, but then it's like creating content, getting ready for this interview. Then I have a tax prep meeting after this. So it's like back and forth. It's weird.
Right. Right. You're switching between the different sides of your brain, right? Because right and left, one does analytical, one does creative work. So
I
yeah, even from a physical perspective, it's a balancing act.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so the last question would be what tips and advice would you offer to others who are trying to get on the entrepreneurial track?
I would have to say the main thing is don't think that you have to be an entrepreneur. Don't think that that is the only option. You really have to, if I can simplify it, you have to count the cost. Count the cost of what you are going to give up if you choose to go that entrepreneurial business owner route versus working for somebody else or having a 9 to 5. Weigh the cost of if you just did it as a side hustle. So I think that's one of the main things that most people need to take into consideration is that you don't have to become an entrepreneur. You don't have to start a business. Like figure out what your overall objective or goal is and then determine what paths you can take to get there. Because the one thing that we should know about life is that there's not just one destination. Well, how can I put this? There's not one road to get you to a specific destination. Oftentimes, depending on where you're coming from, you can go a different way to get to the same place. And I think when it comes to business, entrepreneurship or starting a business, that's just a path. That's just a path. It's not the destination. And I mean, maybe for some people it is, but to me, it's just a path to ultimately get to a specific goal or objective that you want to achieve. For some people, that may be money. For some people, it may be some form of, financial freedom, however they want to categorize it. But I would just say, weigh the cost. Weigh the cost. Is it right for you? Don't do something just because it's popping and it worked for somebody else. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we often make in life, is trying to emulate what other people are doing, especially because they had success. Even if we do everything that they're doing, we can't guarantee or replicate their success. We see it time and time again where people will copy somebody else, but their results are completely different. So weigh the cost, make sure it's something that you really want to do, and ultimately make sure it's going to get you to your goal, your objective, and ultimately do so in an effective way. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to be spinning your wheels when you can do the same thing and just start a side hustle or stay on a 9 to 5 or shift into a different profession. So that would be my advice, is don't just jump into starting a business or being an entrepreneur just because it seems like it's popping. Only do it if it makes sense for you and where you're trying to go in life.
I love that, Jay. It's good, sound advice, because I do feel like our culture kind of hits these certain topics that are all of a sudden hot topics, and this is hot to do this. And entrepreneurship is no joke. Like you said, count the cost. Don't just dive into it because you think people are blowing up overnight, because a lot of them are not. Most
Right.
people who do, establish sustainability in a platform have been grinding for a decade, like for
Right.
years. Um, so I definitely agree with that. Now, for our audience, where can they find you? What new projects do you have coming up? How can they follow you and support?
Most definitely. So definitely go check out the Right to Real Love YouTube channel. Just search for Right to Real Love with J Immanuel. You'll be able to find it. Also, if you want to tap into the Why We Succeed podcast, which is for aspiring and first-time business owners. So for those people that's been sitting on the sideline, you've been dreaming or thinking about starting a business and you want to figure out whether or not it's for you or how to do it, definitely tap in and check out Why We Succeed. You can find that over on YouTube as well. Just search for Why We Succeed with J Immanuel.
Love it. Love it. Thanks so much, Jay. I really appreciate your time, and we will definitely keep in touch.
Look forward to it.